Well, there's a place I can't find. There was something I read.
The lion banner sways and falls in the horror-haunted gloom. A scarlet dragon rustles by, borne on winds of doom. In heaps the shining horsemen lie, where the thrusting lances break, and deep in the haunted mountains the lost black gods awake. Dead hands grope in the shadows, the stars turn pale with fright, for this is the dragon's hour, the triumph of fear and night.
You're muted. You're muted.
Ah, shoot. My mistake there. Happens all the time to me. But hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe. Special welcome to our guest, World of Conan.
Hello and welcome, everybody.
All right. So stuff came up the other day, and now we're ready to go. So chapters 7 and 8. Which
sorry about that. By the way.
No. Anyways, well, let's dive in. I gotta crack open the book because some of my notes are more like bullet points. All right. Right. So apparently Conan's pretty impressed with the horse Zenobia chose him. Now, because it was apparently chosen for its speed, toughness, and endurance. So this is something that, once again, I'm going to defend Zenobia as a character in that she is more than what she seems. Okay, I'll actually revert the camera real quick so Dan can be seen. There. It was better like this. All right, so actually let me just fix that. There. Now, Conan, where was it? All right. Zenobia, though, we had commented before that she doesn't seem to be, she might not be the kind of warrior that Valyria is, but on the other hand, she knows her horses, she knows her weapons. There's more to her than meets the eye, I think, here. And yeah, it's kind of Conan building her up in his head, but which he does do that a lot. On the other hand, his horse is remarkably well chosen. Not to mention, symbolically, I'll have to get into it, the color does matter. White is a color of purity. And in Asia, death, but Howard would have been going with the Western theme of purity. And
it's also conqueror.
This is where I think there was also a bit of a commentary on, I would argue, her feelings for him and what she thinks of Conan. She has very pure intent, like you mentioned last time we discussed the book. But what? Now, I know that it's a lot to read into just the horse, but honestly, I really like Zenobia. And I'm just going to comment that Dan and I have a video coming up this week where we're going to be discussing Arwen a little. Due to it being February, we're going to be getting into romance stories a little. in the context of the various legendariums out there. But Zenobia, I'm going to be honest, I kind of like her more as a character than Arwen. I believe we had discussed that before behind the scenes. And I do like Arwen, but Zenobia I'm already really, really fond of.
Also about the horse, we discussed it before, but the white horse is also the conquering horse. That's why medieval lords and kings used the white horse, because of Revelation talks about I think Jesus coming on the white horse, or at least the one who conquers comes on the white horse, so that's symbolic.
Yeah,
the white thing.
And there's also horses being associated white, like it also brings to mind, I think, the unicorns, which are powerful symbols of divinity and of goodness, and associated with maidens.
And then there's the fact that maidens did fantasize about a knight on a white horse coming to sweep them off their feet.
Well, that has kind of its roots in biblical stories, I think, and Arthuriana, as World of Conan mentioned. Now that I think about it, in Asia, Qilings, which are their kind of unicorns, or kirins, as the Japanese would call them, are more associated with future great monarchs and are more male symbols. So I wonder if, well, yeah. Whereas unicorns seem like a hint of a great queen yet to come, it seems. So
yeah,
I would argue, or a great lady at the very least. So there's a lot to read into just that opening paragraph or two. That said, Conan passes by a lot of forts that seem to be bearing the banner of Amalric, which is kind of stating who has decided to fold and give into Nemedia, especially the Baron of Tor.
Yeah.
And he's also pursued by really annoying Raven.
Yeah, he remarks on the there's no guards at the border. The Aquilonian countryside is noticeably quiet, and obviously that the army has went through here and taken what it wanted, plundered, destroyed, and so forth. And like you said there, yeah, the Raven, there comes a Raven and really annoys him to no end. Which he even says, I would give half my kingdom to kill that Raven. I thought was funny. But there was some really, really good descriptions. Like a dawn ran like prairie fire across the grasslands, and high overhead sounded a weird crying as a straggling wedge of wild geese winged swiftly southward. And there was some. It's always just so good to read Howard and his text. It flows so well, in my opinion, at least. It has good descriptions. Something that really lacks nowadays, for the most part, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. He writes very straightforwardly, but at the same time, he takes his time to weave the tale. I'm actually gonna I find that he writes like the old Norse sagas.
Yeah, I think he read probably a lot of those.
The thing is, oh yeah, he did, apparently. And that said, he also had his writing is if I had to word it in a certain way, Tolkien writes like he's a composer or a conductor. Howard writes almost like he's a someone knitting or sewing together a tapestry. And where Howard's story comes off like a great sweeping saga, Norse saga, which, as you mentioned, he read a lot of. It also comes off like this Bayard tapestry. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a very popular tapestry in Western, in France and England. But it tells the story of 1066. And Howard's stories have a tendency of being like this rich tapestry. Tolkien's have a tendency of being like a great orchestral symphony. And lost my place. But yeah, I don't know what you think of that kind of way of looking at the two. The differences also with the two.
Between which ones? Sorry, say again.
Howard and Tolkien, with Howard kind of sewing or weaving together a tale, and Tolkien composing like a conductor.
Right. Yeah. I agree. It's with Tolkien, I think there's just a lot more thought, like with the lore and all that stuff, like how it flows together. It's way more intricate than Howard has, while Howard comes at it from a more straightforward way, and that's the weaving of it. I would definitely say, though, of course, he has thought in it as well. But at least for me, as I've read both of the authors, there's clearly a difference. Yeah, huge in the style.
Another difference is Howard focused arguably primarily on one character, Conan, while Tolkien focused on a great many.
Yeah.
So there is a difference in that regard. But that said, I'm just going to look at my notes. Conan ends up discovering, on page 620, he notices he's being followed, refuses to submit because he's Conan, the Cimmerian, and arrives at a glade where 4 soldiers are in the middle of trying to hang an I'm going to say crone, but when I use the term crone, I mean it in respect to the archetype of the crone, because that's what she is. This lady is Zalata. I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah. Zalata is a remarkable lady capable of sorcery, I think I should call it.
Yeah.
And she's in the midst of being hanged because, these guys don't much like her.
And we find out, the villagers had told that she has
a questionable local reputation. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we got quite the lag.
Yeah.
No, I just said. Can you hear me? I just said the villagers had told that she has a lot of gold and stuff like that. So.
Oh yeah. So
that's what diverted her attention.
Yep.
But I really love this when Conan confronts, like he immediately confronts them, even though there's 4 of them, and he says, "Dogs," he said, "without passion and without mercy, do Nemedian jackals set themselves up as executioners and hang my subjects at will? First you must take the head of their king. Here I stand, awaiting your lordly pleasure." And the soldier just stared at him uncertainly as he strode toward them. "Who is this madman?" growled the bearded ruffian. "He wears Nemedian mail but speaks with an Aquilonian accent." I just thought it was really well written, that dogs. do Nemedian jackals set themselves up as executioners?
I
And
love the
hang
dialogue.
Yeah. Well, I just love how it starts like dogs. It's like,
And I just love
"Curs,
how
scum."
kingly he sounds.
He means business.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
But the dialogue is
what's
very
also
quintessential Conan.
pretty neat about that dialogue.
Oh, sorry, no, go on.
Oh, all I was going to comment on was that he's a Sumerian, but apparently he seems to address them in Nemedian, but with an Aquilonian accent. So apparently he learned his Aquilonian. Shoot, we're having internet problems.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of lag.
How are we now?
It kind of depends. How long does it take for you to hear me?
Sometimes about a few seconds, but right now it's doing well.
Right. Yeah, it sometimes seems like you can't hear me. It takes a long while before you hear. It's weird.
Yeah. But as to Conan, he so he's apparently learned Nemedian from his time in Aquilonia, but he speaks it with an Aquilonian in an Aquilonian dialect and with an Aquilonian accent. So obviously he spent a lot of time in Aquilonia. Well, I believe by now it's been 15 years or so?
Yeah. I mean, he's been king for a good while, so.
Yeah, probably
and he had a good relationship with the old king of Nemedia, so.
And just as they would have set themselves up as executioners for Zilada, he sets himself up as their executioners and cuts them down.
Yeah, this fight scene is well described. I really like this fight scene.
Oh yeah,
this kind of gives
no argument here.
Gives image.
Yeah, and Zilada's great gray wolf ends up coming to Conan's rescue, which that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Now that said, as for her, I like what she says. Men say King Conan died beneath the stones and dirt when the cliffs crumbled by Valkia. So apparently that's what everybody thinks happened.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. It's that's what they wanted to know to demoralize the whole of Aquilonia. I mean, you have to say that King Conan instead. He's in later chapter and stuff. They talk about that King Conan is the one who binds together. Yeah, he binds together all of the facets, all of the barons, all of the people, and all that stuff. So when he fell and he doesn't have an heir, so it demoralizes everyone. So they don't have anyone to rally under because there's no heir, there's no queen. So old feuds started again. It was obviously a much needed lie to tell that he died. It helped with taking the land. Which even surprised Conan because he thought they would rally under Trocero, Count Trocero, but
they wouldn't rally for.
No, they didn't. No, like I said, old feuds. They thought he would take the throne, so that's stupid. But I guess.
Well, it makes a lot of sense considering the nature of a feudal monarchy.
Mm.
As they mentioned, even a bad monarch is better than no monarch. That's not always true.
Yeah.
That's the mentality that the Aquilonians are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that said, the situation though is that she's and she has an interesting revelation when she asks him, was that a child of the night guiding armed men on your trail?
Yeah.
Which I believe it was a child of the night that actually took down Conan when last he tried to clash with anyone out in the wild, out in the open. I believe that's what Zaltotun used to take him down last time.
Wasn't it a Child of Darkness? But yeah, kind of same thing, I guess.
Oh, okay, yeah, it was a Child of Darkness. My bad. I wonder. Well, this one probably has no power and was just there to act as a familiar and guide the enemy to him. That said, it's killed by an eagle, which eagles themselves are kingly symbols. But eagles are also, at least in American symbolism, associated with America. And I think Texans also like to associate themselves with it. So this has got quite a few connotations.
We could also comment that the eagle, called the kings of the skies, is took out this predatory bird.
Yeah.
So if we...
Yeah, it's basically what's going to happen between Conan and his Zaltotun.
Mm.
Yeah. And
the wolf
Zalata, though, does reveal herself to be... What?
Oh, sorry, I just said the wolf is interesting.
Oh, yeah. Anything else you want to say about it?
Well, I mean, it's wolf are very wild creatures, so it's obviously implied that there's a great bond between Zelata and the wolf because
she's of the wild.
Yeah, because it behaves abnormally for a wolf. I mean, it's very close to the humans and it follows all the commands. So it's more like a dog. And that's why Conan is it's very curious about the wolf. I mean, it even says that he looks on the wolf with interest, because he has obviously from Cimmeria he's acquainted with wolves, but not with a wolf like this. So he's probably kind of maybe weirded out a bit how you're so close to a wolf, but it doesn't behave like a normal wolf. I just it was well.
I think that the other thing with the wolf is that it's a symbol, of nature, but man tamed wolf long ago, and then a lot of the wolves that were tamed later evolved into dogs.
Yeah.
But I think that now that I think about it, there's also the fact that in Norse mythology, Odin has two wolves at his side.
Yeah.
And he often, when he goes out wandering in Middle Earth, or I should say Midgard, although Midgard means Middle Earth, which is to say our world, it's said that Odin takes his wolves along a lot of the time. And that said, Odin's also got two ravens, to Hugni and Munin, who go and gather the knowledge of the world and the universe before at dusk returning to his ears to whisper everything they've heard and seen. Okay. So there's some references to Nordic mythology here.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And there's a lot of having wolf-like connotations here. I might even argue, while Freya / Frigg, the essentially queen of Asgard, because it's basically the same deity, and she at times takes on, I think in one story, the shape of a crone. And I think, and so you kind of have also a connotation right there. So the thing is, the Norse had their crones, such as the three Norns, in particular Erd, who is the Norn of the future, I believe, and Verdandi, the present. And you have Erd is the past. It's Skuld, who's the future, and you have Verdandi, who's the present. So you also have this being a reference to Erd, the Norn of the past. And like Erd, well, since she has connotations to the past, she ends up showing Conan things that have already happened. So this Nordic kind of sense of the character comes here. And Conan consults with her, and she ends up like, if you were to look at this text from, well, it's reminiscent in some ways of Macbeth in Shakespeare consulting with the three weird sisters. But on the other hand, there's something even older than Shakespeare's tradition here that's being hearkened to, as said, the Norse sagas. I'm not trying to constantly reference that. It's just these two chapters are loaded with. It looks like my connection weakened there.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
just are loaded with Norse saga references.
I mean, there's in many places the same thing where one goes to ask counsel or wisdom from a person.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was just reminded in the Bible. There's King Saul goes to the witch of Endor and talks with her, which does not go well. It goes really badly, and he should not have done that. But it's kind of like similar. The king goes to a hut there as well. Just a different context there, but also one thing that reminded me was the Kal story, the mirrors of Tusun Thun, where Kal is shown the was it the past or future, I think. That was very interesting as well. So Howard liked to use obviously the to show future or the past, which is once again brought up in a story. So that's interesting.
One thing about what you said. Now, here I just looked at the paragraph. Apparently, half hut, half cavern. So he's halfway referencing Shakespeare, halfway referencing probably the Bible. But Howard, I think, had sympathies for King Saul, from what I read up from one of his letters. I remember reading up somewhere that he had a lot of pity for Saul and kind of felt that he was probably a better monarch in some ways than David or something, and that he's just misunderstood. But it was the fact, I think, that he mentioned that it was the temper of Saul, like the wrathful temper that drew Howard to that character in the Bible. I remember reading up that. If I find the quote, I'll post it in my community tab later, because it was a good quote that Howard.
I mean, it's a tragedy what happened to King Saul, but I wouldn't say he was a better. That's reading way too much into, because he became very cruel at times he would just kill people that he disagreed with. I mean, a lot of people. So they're the
Yeah.
a
Well, I think
he
Howard. I don't know if that might be my misremembering it, but I just remember Howard saying like he really sympathized with this character, and it's
oh
okay,
yeah,
that's
you
interesting.
definitely can
Because I had never, yeah, I had never given Saul much thought from the Bible. Like I'm good. I'm
Right.
just being honest. But
Yeah.
apparently Howard, I think, gave him a lot more thought than I ever did. Then again, the last time I thought about that character, I think it was like 5 years ago. I can't remember. I think we ended up discussing it just in regards to historiography regarding the year 1000 BC. I think like 5-6 years ago. But
that sounds about right.
I can't even remember every detail of that conversation. I just remember, I remember things from when I was 2 or 3 years old, but I can't remember that conversation in the best detail. Anyways,
I think it. Here is Conan is under the impression that Prospero is holding Tarantia, and he's going to go to Tarantia, and this is where the woman then says,
Yep.
"No, that's not how things are. Let me show you." Like, and she shows him the past, future, and present of Aquilonia, which then changes Conan's thought about that, what he's going to do next, or how he's going to approach the. So it's kind of like a quest in a way. The storyline here, he happens to meet this witch or crone or whatever you want to call her, which is quite fortunate for him. Otherwise, he would probably just he just otherwise maybe just went straight to Tarantia. He would have found out there, but I don't know. Could have gone bad.
I just remembered. There's another tradition that Howard is hearkening here. I just remembered. In Arthuriana, oftentimes men go to consult with oracles in caves and in glens and whatnot. So because it's believed that the elderly of these places, of those countryside places, have wisdoms that men and women from the cities don't. And that's pretty true to life. But the other thing I'm going to just quickly, I just remembered Howard once saying that when every time that an elderly person perishes, it's as though a great library has been burnt, and that he always feels a great swell of grief, and that he loves older people. And I think here, this is also Howard showing the wisdom of the older generation in a way, like they ought to be listened to, in their warnings heeded. And this is what makes Conan a great king, is that he's able to listen to this peasant woman who's older than him. And he's actually sitting down going, well, I don't agree with you. Well, and she's going, well, King Conan, guess what? This is what's going on. And he's going, oh, what? Really?
That makes sense, actually. Conan generally really shows respect for the elderly.
Yeah.
He doesn't take them lightly in that way at all.
No.
As much as he loses his temper quite a few times and gets really upset.
But I don't think he ever insults Zilada at any point in this conversation.
No.
He almost seems frustrated. Deferential.
Yeah. He's just frustrated with the whole situation.
Yeah. And now there is a scene that this kind of is almost similar to at the start, although it does not go the same way, nor is the middle or later part of the scene at all like one particular scene in Lord of the Rings. But the start of the scene has, him going, well, I'll just do this. And not so fast. And you have this magician woman who, this witch, who ends up revealing the truth to him. This is very similar to what happens at Bag End when Frodo first happens upon Gandalf after Bilbo has left. You have Frodo comes in and goes, "What's going on?" And he's shown the ring, and Gandalf has to reveal to him the truth of the One Ring and the truth of his quest, and basically gives him the quest. Now, she's giving Conan kind of the quest, but Conan already kind of had this quest.
Yeah.
At the start, he wants to plunge on in, just as Frodo gets impulsive initially. But what happens is this older person tempers that youthful impulsiveness with their wisdom and their knowledge of the situation. So, I don't know what you think of that way of reading it, but
yeah.
But that said,
definitely. No, I was just going to comment that it also, you can read here that they sowed distrust in Count Rosero. Among the barons and but most importantly among the people, like that I mean the Nemedians and Xaltatun and all these, they sowed distrust so as they would not rally behind Count Rosero and Prospero.
Fools.
Yeah, I mean Conan even says, "Fools, why should they not trust Prospero?"
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then we get a glimpse of Valerius being coronated, becoming king. Amalric gives the crown, or puts the crown on his head. But it's fun that or we see quite fast how it turns out. Valerius obviously very loyal then to the Nemedians and just lets them use the Aquilonians however they wish and take vengeance on Aquilonians for all the old feuds and stuff like that. So I don't know. It was a really bad decision. To not think of that, but I guess they didn't. Or at least the people didn't think. I mean, there's a point here. It even says that the wise people knew that this would happen this way, that the Nemedians would get free run of the country. But
there's also a moment where we can doubt whether the people are sincere in their cheers. The people cheered, and long lines of steel-clad Nemedian warriors looked grimly on. So are they really cheering out of genuine sentimentality, or are they kind of at sword point here, like being made to cheer at sword point? But this right here, just this one sentence, I actually had to... I remember reading kind of an incident that happened in English history where after the Battle of 1066 of Hastings, the Anglo-Saxons were forced to cheer for and applaud the coronation of Guillaume the Conquérant, that is to say, William the Conqueror.
Yeah.
And if they didn't, they'd have a redder smile.
Right.
And they ended up doing so, but the Normans still burnt down the building. So it didn't really matter. And so here there's that historic reference, I think, as well. And Howard was a brilliant historian. So
I guess the people probably thought that by rallying behind Valerius, or maybe that's also the lie that was spread, that they would be spared the bloodshed or more of the vengeance, maybe. Well, specifically if there was a civil war between the barons, but also maybe from the Nemedians, because Valerius was from the old dynasty. But
no,
obviously he didn't do that because he doesn't care, because he's a extremely selfish man, as you can see.
Yeah, he's wasteful.
Yeah, I thought the This was one of my favorite places in the whole chapter. These when Conan says, or when she says to Conan, and then Conan responds, "You have seen the people of your capital have forfeited the freedom you won for them by sweat and blood. They have sold themselves to the slavers and the butchers. They have shown that they do not trust their destiny. Can you rely upon them for the winning back of your kingdom?" And I thought this was a fantastic. This is such a Conan response, and that's why I really like and love the Conan character. He's very pragmatic. He doesn't dwell in the past. He doesn't let these things cloud his judgment. He doesn't stay in bitterness. Like, he doesn't let bitterness take root in him and just make him a moron, basically. But he says, just, "They thought I was dead," he grunted, recovering some of his voice. "I have no son. My men can't be governed by a memory. What if the Nemedians have taken Tarantia? There still remain the provinces, the barons, and the people of the countrysides. Valerius have won an empty glory." But just that, like, they can't be ruled by memory. I have no son. Like, he's just like, yeah. Like, that's in the past. Let's move on. Like, the people can't.
Yeah,
Like he understands the people. Like, he doesn't hold the people. Like, he doesn't blame them. He doesn't like.
No, he doesn't.
That I'm gonna take my vengeance upon the populace because
no, he's like, well, they can't be blamed.
These Nemedians just slew their big, powerful king.
Yeah.
King Conan, one of the strongest warriors.
But there's something else. Now, there's something that Howard, I think, comments on to an extent in history. Or at least it reminds me of a George Lucas statement that freedom is never something that's conquered from outside, but given away. And here, what Howard has a lot to say is, the people of your capital have forfeited the freedom you won for them by sweat and blood. They have sold themselves to the slavers and butchers. They have shown that they do not trust their destiny. Here, that's often the way it goes with, how freedom is lost. People decide they don't want to
comfort again.
They don't want to work hard for their freedom,
comfort,
and they don't trust in their own destiny, and
they don't understand the power that they have.
Exactly, and I think that's something that Howard was very, very conscious of. And very aware of. Very intelligent man, and
that might be why he was very interested in the barbarism and the tribes aspect against civilized. That there was power, unrooted, or rooted power, however you want to say, but there was like untapped power in the tribes, and that in the barbarians, like that the barbarians knew something, that when they came together, they were strong, and that's why, like, they took the Roman Empire and stuff like that. But the civilized folk, that they being so lulled by the comfort, they don't, even though they could have the strength to rise up and against, they do not understand that, they do not see themselves, they do not have the confidence in them or others, their neighbors. So they I think I think Howard looked at it like that had a play on why he liked the barbarian aspect more.
Now, real quick, there is something else I've been listening to audio primary sources recently, just for fun. I know it's such a weird thing to do for fun, but what I found out was that apparently there were near the end of the Western Roman Empire who formed outlaw bands together and formed almost mini little enclaves, because they believed that the nobility were deliberately bringing down the empire, or at least screwing them over. And these outlaws would often ally with barbarians against the nobility. And so this is kind of the traditional view, is that all Romans hated the barbarians, but apparently certain countryside outlaws who were Christian and Roman and determined to preserve their traditions would often ally with like the Frank or the Goths against their own empire. But these groups also ended up apparently adopting some of the Germanic tribal. They slowly became like them.
Yeah.
But they also quickly adopted their mindset of we're stronger together as a kind of federation here, an outlaw group. And the barbarians, in some cases, were quick to try to adopt these outlaws into their own band in order to gain, because these Romans were more literate than them and had a knowledge of how Rome operated. So what you'd have is, like in France, the slow melding of these Celto-Germanic tribes with outlawed Romans. And this was a very, now this is something I thought was very interesting, but it's something that I ended up thinking the veneer of civilization had fled from these Romans when they're pressed into a corner. Right. And I think Howard would have known about these sources and would have read them better than I did, and probably would have seen it as, well, that's the natural state of man, going from civilization back to barbarism there, and fusing with the local barbarian tribes and being absorbed into them in a way, long term.
I guess there's also the in Howard's writing, the contempt of the nobility, basically, that they're using the people, and the civilized people have kind of accepted that, but the barbarians, they do not accept. They have not accepted the abuse from their noble. If they don't like the king or the chief, they take him out.
Yep.
You know, they rise up, and I think Howard really loved that. Like, let's rise up, let's make a change for better, because these people are bad, and I don't like these people. They're abusing us, and so he made it. Yeah,
it's also interesting because only the capital has accepted the Numidians. It's only the center of Aquilonia. The rest of Aquilonia is Conan saying, well, they haven't accepted it. Just because Tarantia has fallen does not mean that Aquilonia as a whole has fallen. That's an interesting observation.
But doesn't when later in the chapter, doesn't it say that the like all of Aquilonia has fallen, but or they have like given their allegiance instead of bloodshed,
but what he states, well, what I meant was Conan's comments that just because you take the capital doesn't mean you take the whole country.
Right. Yeah.
You have to take it piece by piece. Now,
right, true.
In this era, it wasn't like total war or something. You take the city, it changes colors, and everybody in that entire region flips to your side. No. You have to take it piecemeal.
Yeah.
To a large extent. I would also compare this situation a little to the 100 Years' War of France and England and Scotland, in where, in this case, Valerius is very much like Jean II of France. He was a bit of a puppet king for England, who was king of France. And he often screwed over France and willingly exchanged himself in as a hostage. And France grew weaker and weaker under him. But the difference is his son, Charles V, the Wise, or Le Sage, was a very good monarch who had to play political games with the English because he had to save his country. But anyways.
Yeah.
It's also interesting that Conan gets very, very angry about a Numidian placing the crown of Aquilonia upon the brow of the crown prince, because Conan, it seems like he's adopted a bit of the feuds, and like he does not seem to like the idea of a Numidian interfering in the succession of Aquilonia, putting Aquilonia in a position of inferior to Numidia. Yeah. That's a very Aquilonian position for him to have. And it's not at all Cimmerian.
Yeah, there must have been a lot of feuds back in the day.
Yeah.
also everything that took place, like I mean, what Conan has seen in the countryside when he's been riding and stuff. So obviously he's also uh, vexed at the Nemedians. So he's like that they dare do that, or also that the fact that the Valerius lets a Nemedian put the crown on him. Shouldn't it be an Aquilonian? Like, what on earth does Nemedia have to do with the royal of Aquilonia? Like, get them out of here.
Yeah,
Like,
the ceremony.
yeah, the sacred ceremony or whatever you want to call it. But it's Aquilonia. Like it shows that the Aquilonia has been put under the media, which is obviously has, but also like in the royal sense, in the
Yep.
that a weak king lets that he doesn't even think about it. Like he lets Amalric just crown him, which means he's just a lower person. Yeah, it's a lower person.
It's like it's reminiscent of Scotland and England at the start of the Scottish Wars of Independence, where Scotland got angry when Edward I enforced this on England. Like, oh, I'm gonna basically be the guy who gets to choose who the King of Scotland is, and I'm gonna crown him, and I'm gonna call him to war as my vassal, not as my ally. Well, Scotland got angry and said, then we're going to strip that king of all power and return it to the people of Scotland and the clergy, because he's useless. Tomb Tabard, they called him. And then that started a war because the Scots kind of wanted a new king, because the current king was a nobody and he was a cipher. And what Valerius has done is to basically this sort of thing, it could only lead to future wars between Aquilonia and Numidia of a new caliber. It's going to be even worse because Aquilonia has to fight for her independence now, and otherwise she'll just be part of Numidia. She'll just cease to be. While Numidia has to fight to enforce her claims on Aquilonia. That said, I suspect that Conan will try to find a way to reverse this situation later on.
Yeah, obviously.
Because he's got to protect his kingdom.
I think it's good that Zelata says you are stubborn, as befits a fighter.
Yeah.
Conan stubborn? No. Really?
Yeah. But it's just good how he says, Valerius has won an empty glory. But then she shows him the future and the past, I think, first. Look into the past for a clue of the present. And then we see this scene of I think this is the scene about Exaltatune, because his sarcophagus was green jade in the beginning, as it was described. So these are the thieves that are stealing the sarcophagus from Stygia in the Temple of Set, which she doesn't know what it means, and Conan doesn't know what it means, but I think he will later on understand the importance of this vision that has been shown to him, the clue that is there, because it talks about a vessel there, black stone, golden vessel. So it's probably talking about the heart of Ahriman, or giving a clue to it, because we get that a great line later on here about you have to find the heart of your kingdom. There lies your defeat and your power. You fight more than mortal man. You will not press the throne again unless you find the heart of your kingdom. So, which has many meanings, but obviously the heart of Ahriman, and then to find the heart of the people, and then to reverse all this what has happened. But yeah.
you have Conan who tells her later, when I come to my throne again, I won't forget.
Yeah.
Because he's very grateful to her. And yeah, that's just before she says, find the heart of your kingdom. Yeah. So, but what's interesting is that I do wonder if she is conscious of what it means to heart. But she is an oracle. You don't.
I'm sorry. No, I don't think so. No, because she says here in places here, I don't know. This is just what the gods tell me. I don't.
Oh yeah.
I do not altogether understand myself, though I have sought wisdom in the silence of the high place for many years.
That's actually a very exciting thing there. Yeah, because in traditional literature, oracles only spoke what the gods told them, and they would always catch the meaning themselves. And this is something that I also noticed several times in this. I'm going to repeat that because I don't know whether we blanked out for a minute.
Yeah, you froze a bit.
Several times I noticed in the Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings, this sort of thing happens, where the character just says what kind of occurred. Ooh, I'll wait a moment. I hate this internet connection. All right. Several times in the Silmarillion and Lord of the Rings, it seems like characters are stricken with the gift of prophecy, but it's momentary, and they don't always remember it, or they just say it, and it's just something that was transmitted to them momentarily to an extent, kind of like this. So this is a very, 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 very cool thing Howard just did. And, well, just did back in 36 or 37, I think. And it's a very neat thing with a long literary history.
Yeah, it's a very classic.
And then there are times where oracles in such a situation are aware of the message they receive, but they cannot reveal it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think here she's telling the truth. So actually, I'm going to actually say something. I think that maybe calling her a witch was wrong. She is actually indeed an oracle rather than a witch.
Right.
But she seems to be... It seems like there's a bit of a mixture of a Celtic or Nordic view of... Well, okay. The Celtic seems to stem from her living near a cavern, and because the Arthurian myths are very, very Celtic to an extent, at least because they originate in Wales and in France and Scotland and whatnot, a lot of the stories, before they eventually came over to England and were really well done with, like La Mort d'Arthur. But you have a very Celtic influence, and because it's off in the countryside, where the Nordic influence enters seems to be with the wolf, and yes, to an extent, a cave.
Yeah.
And then you have, of course, the Greek tradition of the gods passing something to her mouth without her fully understanding every part of her prophecy. So Howard is mixing three very, very old, beautiful literary traditions here. And he's doing it very, very consciously, I think. And this is something that is like I just can't help but really adore it. That
What do you?
said,
No, sorry, I was just going to ask you. What do you think about, when these things happen in stories, like they I tell you apart, like I tell you one thing, I can't tell you everything. What do you think would happen if someone wrote a story and they would tell like basically everything that they got from the prophecy or the oracle, like because this is much more used trope or classic, like you said, like you get some things in part so that the journey continues. But I was just thinking, what do you think if someone gave a lot more information and it changed the journey in another interesting way?
well, okay, I do think it would still be interesting. I think that I've kind of seen that trope done in this is going to be weird, but a sci-fi anime series called Mobile Suit Gundam from 1979, I think, or 78. Yeah. But in there, the character Lala Soon divulged a lot of information to Amuro Ray, but I'd argue it drove him a little mad because he then proceeded to try to murder Char almost without reason out of jealousy. And then he ended up accidentally killing Lala. And then that caused him to have an extended breakdown wherein he ended up later deciding to become all but a hermit in Zeta Gundam. So it seems to have had a long-term negative impact on the character. That said, from what I've seen in Dragonlance, in the Legends trilogy, Raceland ends up revealing a lot of what he does, but he reveals everything at one point to the characters. We're not privy to it until later, but he does it to manipulate them. With the whole truth shown to them, some of these characters think to take him on as the truth bearer, like as someone whom they can trust, when he's very clearly manipulating them for a mad quest for godhood. And it's something that kind of drives them a little bonkers to an extent, because they start to wonder what's true, what isn't, and whether they can trust him or not. Turns out at that point in the story, they can't. But he never really lies to them, ever. But the problem is that the way he presents the truth, like he always presents the whole thing with a very clear intent. And in turn, Raceland, knowing the entire truth, comes back to bite him, because when someone later does the kind of, here's the whole truth, Raceland chooses to, he's at first angry and bitter because someone knew something that he didn't. But I think that generally this, I think that we should look at it as kind of the human experience in a way. Like, you can't, like, your elders will tell you, this is what I know, don't do this, or please do that instead. But ultimately, for some reason, we young people often then do something foolish and say, no, I'm going to do this instead. And we take a long road, we do something dumb. And we've all done it. And I think that it's a case where it has to be experienced. You can't be told it.
Yeah.
And I think that if someone was given the whole truth, it might lead them astray in a way. They might make the wrong choice. It's a manipulation to not reveal the truth, but they have to experience the adventure. It's not the end so much as the journey. Sorry for the long-winded answer. I think you brought up a very good point.
Yeah, because no, go ahead. Go ahead. Duncan.
I've also seen this trope used in different ways. For example, misleading the main character. Yeah. Sometimes such a seer will tell more of the truth, but slip a lie in there.
Yeah. Oh, I think that what World of Conan actually means is like unvarnished truth, no lie, extent, just pure truth. And yeah, it is such a.
But like you said, there's dangers there. I was just thinking of in two different ways. In story writing, like obviously it would rob of the plot points that are being set up. You would have to change the plot points. Yeah,
sorry for interrupting. I just thought of one story that does it not once but twice, where the whole truth is unveiled to the main character, and he doesn't actually, like, the characters don't really go astray, where it kind of I don't like this term too much, but subverts is what we've just been talking about. Lord of the Rings. Gandalf reveals everything he knows at the beginning to Frodo. And then years later at the Council of Elrond, every character reveals everything they know.
Right.
And the characters are not led astray by this truth to a large extent, or the nature of the truth and whatnot. I've seen characters misled by the truth in a lot of other stories, but in Lord of the Rings, Tolkien has, the characters come together and reveal everything twice, and these are some of the best moments in the book, and it never leads anyone really astray. They're led astray by their own vices or their own perceptions or lies that they tell themselves, but the truth doesn't lead them astray. So I think that, to answer your question, what would happen if you just had a big truth dump, so to speak? Tolkien does the best job showing how it could positively happen. Now, when I look at Gundam, for example, I'm looking at the negative of what could happen. Yeah. So it could go either way. I actually like Tolkien's idealistic version.
Yeah, I mean, you have to
Shakespeare that has done this.
Oh, with both ways.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Like Midsummer Night's Dream has the whole truth coming out, and you have Oberon going, "What did you Darn it, Puck, fix this!" And Puck fixes this thing, and that's funny. But then you have, on the other hand, the unveiling of the whole truth involving, like, I think, Hamlet, which is a horrifying moment, as well as.
Yeah, I guess it just that it would change plot points. Like here, if she you got to go find the heart of Ahriman, then Conan would go somewhere else instead, where he goes now, and stuff like that. But also like you said about the dangers of knowing everything is also one could become trapped in that sense that you try yourself to fulfill something that you've been told, but it was not the point of you trying to fulfill it by your own means in some way, but it was about it's supposed to happen, but now you go on and muddled the water, so to speak, and but yeah, it's an interesting plot point, like how, like, if you write a story, would you because this is a pretty used trope in that way, but like you said, also there's the other way how you could write something in a different way.
Okay. Now I'm going to refer back to my own writings, primarily my Scottish novel right now. I think I've done, because it's fantasy, I think I've actually done both, where a character just lays out the truth, but I've also had, I think, a character, my brain's not on my book, it's on this, so I'm having a hard time thinking back. and since I'm working on volume 2, I'm not really thinking about volume 1 as much, except where it ties to volume 2. I think I actually I do kind of both. So but ultimately I don't have the characters know everything, so they're really fumbling around in the dark, and that's something I think that's important, because they're fumbling around in the dark and they make guesses and they get things wrong, and that comes back to bite them, and then they learn what the truth is, so that I have them think something and then they find out later, oh no, that was false, whoops. And yeah, and that's what I think part of the story with Conan really is him fumbling around in the dark to figure out the truth and shed light on the situation.
Yeah.
And to pull everyone into the light, so to speak. Now, chapter 8, Dying Embers, is a really great chapter, I'm not going to lie. And we have him wandering on to what is called the plantation of Servius Gallienus. Now, I am familiar with American history, so I know that a lot of people are going to probably kind of side-eye the term plantation, but the original, and even the Irish audience, because the Irish plantations.
Well, wasn't it also in Rome? I read it more like a Rome thing.
Yeah, Roman. You could read it that way. What I was going to say, though, actually, that's a good term. That's where the first plantations were. We should look at the term plantation more as farming estate, and that's what the term originally meant. So,
because slavery has been outlawed. I mean, Conan disliked slavery very much. So.
Yeah. Now, all I was going to say was, now, if you don't like the word, bear in mind, Howard was looking at it from a Roman perspective. He was very much a guy in favor of freedom for all. So, it's a matter of him selecting a certain term. He uses it interchangeably with the term estate, and a few times. So or even manor house, which I'm just wanting our audience to bear in mind, or even the Gallienus farm, I can understand anyone who has issues with kind of the word due to the past 500 years of history, but there's a longer history kind of to the term. And just fair warning, and any complaints people have with the term, I actually understand, but it's a very old term. So Howard might have known about the history, but was trying to kind of subvert the history in that Conan outlawed slavery. So before, I guess you could put in your head the kind of Irish plantations in some cases, or the Roman plantations where you had slaves doing all the work. But since Conan outlaws all slavery in Aquilonia, this means all the men working in the fields are free men, or free women in the case of women, because they would be doing farm work as well. And so this is a very, very important linguistics selection of a word, I guess I should say. He chose the word very, very expressly, and it's a loaded term, but it's very important here. And Howard's making a very important commentary on what kind of king Conan is. He's a good king.
Wasn't the slavery outlawed before Conan already? I think in the West more. Wasn't? Yeah. I'm not. I can't remember right now. I think it was more in the southern and eastern regions where it continued.
You mean in real life?
No. In Hyboria.
Yeah.
Hyboria.
Okay, because I was going to say in I think Britain, it was outlawed in 1800 year.
Yeah.
And Britain and France tried to outlaw it around the world. They never fully succeeded.
Yeah. No. I meant in Hyboria. Like I think the Western countries were the first ones to outlaw it. And I think they already did that before Conan. I can't remember right now.
Okay, well, you know more than I do. I don't know that. I just know Aquilonia outlawed slavery under Conan. That said, Servius is startled by Conan, who ends up frightening him because Servius at first mistakes him for a ghost and thinks he's being haunted and that he's guilty of something, a bit like Macbeth with the ghost of Banquo. And so you have here this really funny scene where Howard is really kind of, I think, mocking or gently mocking his hero Shakespeare, because he was a big fan of Shakespeare.
This is quite used as well. I just noticed similarities between other things and this. Seeing the or thinking that it is a ghost.
Oh,
like
yeah,
a person that's very used.
Yeah, and Conan, though, once he's recognized,
he wants food.
yeah, he's just like, I'm hungry.
Yeah, give me food.
He's immediately addressed as Your Majesty. Now, as far as Majesty, the term came a little, we tend to think, oh, all monarchs were described as Majesty, but actually, kings did not become majestic immediately. I think they became majestic after like the 14th or 15th century. I can't remember quite exactly. I'm sure there's someone out there who will remember off the top of their head. At the moment, I can't remember, but it's not as early as what we tend to think in the medieval period. And so that just speaks to how advanced Aquilonia is as a society, that its kings are majestic.
Interesting.
In terms of linguistics. Yeah, it's now the main country I tend to think of are those which were Francicized, that tend to use Votre Majesté, like Your Majesty. And so that's a loan word from the French language to the English language, Majesty. So, yeah. But apparently Servius does not exactly trust all of his servants with Conan, because he's frightened that they might spread the word or something, and he's careful to protect his monarch, which goes a long way to showing us what kind of person Servius is. He's obviously very loyal to Conan. And this also, now he's a direct baron under because like in medieval Europe, you'd have, all the dukes and counts, but kings would also have barons within their own royal domain. So like you'd have, let me think. I can't think of a good example, but you might have like, just as the king of France is king of France, he is also Comte de Paris, which means he's also Count of Paris. And he would have under his direct command some of the outlying barons of that region. And so, like, you might have Le Baron de d'Orléans, that wouldn't be a baron, but you know what I mean? Like, that guy would not take orders from other dukes or whatever, but from the king direct. So Servius is a direct feudal vassal of Conan, and he very much owes his loyalty to Conan. I wonder if Conan was the one who appointed him to the position that he has. But he also mentions that Servius has 50 men at arms that he could lead to battle in a heartbeat. So he does not have the biggest fiefdom, but it is large enough that he has a household that has maybe 50 huscarls or knights at his beck and call.
Yeah.
So that does tell us that he is a fairly wealthy man. And of course, he mentions the ruins of Aemilius Scaevonis's plantation. So obviously, another loyal baron, the strongest, which the term uses patrician being nobleman, in the province of Tarantia. I'm just going to call it that because that's the capital region. That's not the actual canon, I think, but I'm just calling that for ease of comprehension. He refused loyalty to Valerius. So the Numidians burnt him in the ruins of his own villa.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to repeat because my internet got annoying again. Aemilius Scaevonis apparently was burnt alive in the ruins of his own villa.
Oh, no. Can you guys hear me? Oh,
yeah.
You froze for a bit.
Okay. Not our lucky night.
No, not.
I already closed most of my tabs and windows. Let me just check something. Just closing more stuff now. But Aemilius Scaevonis, apparently the strongest vassal in the principal province, the province of Tarantia, he got apparently burnt alive in the ruins of his own villa. Villa being a Roman term for estate. So obviously he didn't have a good time. And this also shows the level of barbarity that the Numidians are tackling this war with.
Yeah.
And this is the sort of warfare Celtic Ireland and Celtic Scotland did engage in. I don't know about the Greeks, but I'm thinking, when I say the Greeks, I mean like the Greek Empire of the medieval period. I don't know. Now, they did horrid tortures, but I don't know if they would have actually burnt someone alive in their own home like that.
Conan even remarks about the Picts, like they would kill women and children, everyone, just torch everything, and that's why they hated the Picts. One of the reasons why they hated the Picts, because the Picts showed absolutely no mercy at any time, anywhere, and that was not the Cimmerian way. Cimmerians didn't do that. So there was definitely different levels of warfare also in the Hyborian Age.
The trouble is this sort of concept of all-out warfare is wrong, for one thing, and it goes to show that the Numidians, how do I put it? They're acting like the Picts are. I think you're the one trying to make that link in a way. They're behaving in a way that they really shouldn't. And Conan doesn't like this. Neither should we, I think.
I mean, it's a horrible way to build up your kingdom that you've just taken. Like
it's not going to inspire loyalty.
I mean, it's not going to inspire anything. Like nothing good, at least.
Hatred.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the dumbest. Like that's such a dumb move. Like such a dumb move to make. Like even many conquerors, like even understand. Like if you look at history, understand that you give something to the people, like you help them ease into the next phase of the kingdom. You don't, because otherwise you're just putting knives in your back. Like you're just making knives in your back.
Yeah. One of my favorite conquerors in history is Augustus Caesar. One thing he offered to, let's say, Gaul, when essentially he had to semi-reconquer it. He ended up offering it lower taxes than what some of the previous governors had. He tried to provide more Roman goods to the Gallic people, and ultimately slowly attracted them to the Roman lifestyle, saying, well, you get all of this. In return, we're just going to take this from you, and ultimately tried to slowly culturally assimilate them. And he tried this tactic everywhere he went, and he proved very popular. Philip August, when he conquered the regions of his kingdom that England had taken decades before his birth, he tried the idea of lower tax rates. This is often a tactic, it seems, because nobody likes paying taxes. And, it worked with
nobody does.
Yeah, nobody does. With these former English subjects. But here, this sort of way of, sad to say, this sort of, we're just going to butcher everything we see, it seems to be more common in history. But it just proves you're a brute. It doesn't actually help anyone.
It's not smart. It's dumb. No. It's stupid.
Yeah, it is.
It's like I'm just gonna build the seeds of my own destruction right now. Yes, please. Can I be overthrown in 5 years?
This happened in Japanese history with Oda Nobunaga.
Oh yeah, everybody started competing to kill him.
Yeah, and it led to
because he just treated the nobility, the peasants, the priesthood, everyone like garbage, so that everybody hated him. And then what's funny is that all of his top generals whom hated him conspired to, well, they each individually were planning to do him in. It just, one of them got to him before the rest did, and it's such a funny episode in Japanese history.
And you had
but anyways, yeah, we don't have time to tell the whole story. It's so funny. But I think that here it's proof of the cruelty the Numidians are have given themselves over to. And apparently they thought that they burnt Emilius alive, and everybody else kind of broke in terms of their resistance. They got frightened, and the people of Tarentia after that refused to fight.
And he also says many of the barons had been slain, others taken prisoner.
Yeah. And this sort of thing occasionally happens in history. But what is also noteworthy is that Valerius has decided to spare many lives, but he levied a new tax that's apparently so harsh it'll ruin almost everyone.
Also stupid.
So he's also not being a very good king, because he's been crowned by the enemy. He's allowed them to plunder and destroy his country, to slaughter and capture as prisoners his nobility, those he should be aligning to his side so he can take back his kingdom from the media. And he's, overtaxing his people. And so nobody's cheering for him all that sincerely anymore, because who would want to?
And later we also see that he doesn't even enforce the police, basically, to keep the Aquilonians safe in Tarantia. In the city itself, they let Nemedians do whatever to the women and the merchants. So I mean, that's completely moronic, stupid, and horrible.
Actually, I'll also add another thing. This sort of tactic of warfare was actually done. I've seen it done a few times in history. You have Japan, who did it to Korea at one point. You have England that did it to Scotland and Ireland and France. And what this always does is it, in the words of a Scottish historian, it hammers national consciousness into a people. And I think that, in a way, if the Aquilonian people didn't already kind of consider themselves one big group, this is hammering nationhood into their mindset, that they are different from Numidians. Numidians and them, not the same people. So this is just further linking together the Aquilonians in a way at their core, or at least amongst the people. I'm not referring to the nobility, I mean like the people. But now, that said, Servius does explain and repeat something we already know, that a lot of the old rivalries flooded back to the surface, and everybody began to infight. And
oh, he froze up again. Oh no. You have frozen up completely. Okay.
Can you hear us?
Now you're... Yeah.
all right, looks like we lost our connection but I think that now there's a line Servius says that it's that Aquilonia has a king instead of the anarchy they feared, which actually, now he does add, Valerius does not protect his subjects against his allies. Hundreds who could not pay the ransom imposed upon them have been sold to the Gothic slave traders. I'm actually going to argue that, yes, they have a tyrant who's worse than anarchy, but they still have anarchy. It's a free-for-all. And
Yeah.
this anarchy is something that
Oh, you froze up again. Oh no. Not good.
That said, I just wanted to comment that they do have their anarchy. That's all. Also, apparently, Prospero had command of 10,000 men. So, like Conan said in the first chapter or so. Although I do like that Conan gets a little sarcastic and just says, "And do the people thrive under his benevolent rule?"
Mm.
And Servius, I like his answer. He lives like a foreign prince in the midst of a conquered land. His court is filled with Nemedians. The palace troops are of the same breed, and a large garrison of them occupy the citadel. Aye, the hour of the dragon has come at last. And yeah, we have Conan who comments that a great many of the, not Conan, but it's comment. I think it's Sergius who comments that a great many people will live out the lives of slaves in the palaces of Shem and of Turan. But
Yeah. Can you hear me? Guys? Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry,
you froze.
Flashed off. Yeah.
Yeah, you froze quite heavily there again.
Ugh.
Well, that's the fourth time you froze.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. Sorry to all our viewers. We're struggling here with our internet.
Is it a snowstorm over there?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
Yeah, but we're gonna try to power through this and make it to the end. That said, apparently most of the people of Shem and of Turan, basically a lot of Conan's people are going to live out the rest of their days in Shem and Turan as slaves. And apparently the provinces, well, or I should say the regions of Gunderland and Poitou, the furthest north and furthest southern regions, are yet unconquered and refuse to submit.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of provinces that are unsubdued in the west. And apparently the outlying provinces, well, the border barons apparently have the backing of the Bessonian men, primarily they're bowmen, and apparently, although Conan makes one great vow, his time is short about Valerius. He's apparently peeved at everything that's been going on. And you have you have Servius, who seems to say that no mortal man can stand before Conan's sword, which that's pretty true.
Yeah, I think this is where I thought it was interesting. We see a bit of a flaw in Conan here, which Servius points out that, I mean, in Conan's thinking that it's interesting. He doesn't understand that the Servius points out to him that yes, no one can stand against you. A mortal man can stand against you. I mean, you're the best fighter and all that, but we're talking about sorcery here, and I don't understand why Conan didn't think that he can't go about this the normal way of just let me take up my armies and just conquer, because his armies, that was a great army, was taken out by sorcery like that. He has to focus or shift his focus from just a full-on attack by an army to think how he's going to first defeat this sorcerer, who's the actual problem here, and then he can focus on the mortal aspect, so to speak, like the soldier aspect of it. But he doesn't understand that at first. That's kind of strange or interesting that he doesn't see it at first.
Yeah, I think he's more interested in coming to the defense of his people.
Oh, yeah. That could be his. Yeah.
In that regard, I think strategically, it might be better if you were to think like and do what you suggested.
Yeah.
But I think the very thought of his people suffering under the brutality of the Numidians and Valerius for a minute longer, and for him not to have his rightful crown with which he can protect his people, I think just makes his skin crawl. I don't think he can stand it. And
right. But he must think with strategy here, because if he just goes head on, he will lose immediately, just like the last time.
It's one thing to play the strategy. Oh, our king! Not even death can stop our king.
Yeah.
It's like he came back again from death, and you have to consider, if the same wizard comes back and kills them, it would destroy the people far more.
Yeah.
And there's something of what we're discussing that Servius points out to Conan, because he tries to explain to him that everybody's basically returned to their home regions. They're not going to come out until they feel confident. And Conan tries to explain to him, but we can take the city. We can hold it against Amalric until the Gundermen and the Poitanians can get here. But Servius tells him, everybody says you died accursed.
Yeah.
And there's also a problem that we have fear of sorcery here. And that fear of this is too great for the central regions. Even the Gundermen and the Poitaniers probably wouldn't rise up immediately like that.
Yeah.
So Conan does need to think
redirect
from a different angle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it
And
says the sorcery defeated you at Valkia. Like they think it would defeat him immediately again. So he must address the problem of the sorcery. And I love this where it speaks about a Nemedian priest loosed black magic again in the streets of Tarantia to slay men who were still loyal to your memory. I myself saw it. Armed men dropped like flies and died in the streets in the manner no man could understand. And the lean priest laughed and said, I'm only Altaro, only an acolyte of Orastes, who is but an acolyte of him who wears the veil. Not mine is the power but works through me. Well, said Conan harshly. so this I love this image that Howard writes here to really push it home. No, you gotta deal with this sorcery. Like this sorcery is the main issue. You have to deal with this before you deal with Valerius and everything. You like this is the downfall was the sorcery, not Valerius. The sorcery was your downfall. You must deal with it first.
So here it is. We have Nemedia that is using superstition as a weapon.
as well as actual magic.
Exactly.
And Conan doesn't have that on his side. And this is really also pushing forward the how do I put it? It's pushing forward the how bad the situation is.
Yeah.
The crushing weight of this catastrophe that's crushing down upon Aquilonia and Conan. He's building up the villains and the situation. And it's a very important thing that is being done here. And it's such a great... I just love this moment because we've got Servius who's serving a very important role of advisor to Conan. He's advising, he's counseling, and we see that Conan still has men he can trust within the realm. Servius may have surrendered quickly, but it's because he was a pragmatist. And now that Conan sits in front of him, he's back to being loyal to Conan. But he's just kind of trying to tell him, let's fight smart, not hard.
Yeah.
And there is a way to win. We just need to figure it out.
Yeah.
And, or at least that's kind of what's being advised here. And we also get told through Servius what's happened to Conan's friends / court officials. Pallantides was, of course, sorely wounded at Valkia. And apparently he was ransomed back by his family. And so that's very important and very good.
I knew he wouldn't die. Pallantides.
Yep, you were right. I was wrong. And I'm glad because, well, I like Pallantides. And apparently he's in his castle at Attalus. So apparently he's the Baron of Attalus. And he will be fortunate if he ever rides again. I have no doubt before this story is over, he'll be riding and fighting.
Yeah.
After all, he has to participate in the Wrathathon.
Oh, yeah. There's that. Yeah.
It's interesting here. It doesn't mention priest, a priest of Mitra, because obviously in some other stories by other writers, Conan also had a priest of Mitra who was very loyal to Conan, who was a friend and who helped him and helped with protective spells and stuff like that. But I can't remember if Howard had him written in any of the stories. I can't remember right now. But it is interesting that he have, kings would have those like a priest as well. So
yeah.
So
well, Publius, the chancellor and
Chancellor.
head of I'm losing my other bookmark. Publius, Conan's chief advisor and the chancellor, apparently has fled the kingdom in disguise, and apparently no one knows where. I wonder if Publius fled at the first, when he saw the way things were going. I'm pretty sure he fled the moment the news got out that Conan was dead. I suspect that's probably what happened, because I don't think Publius is a coward exactly, but I think that once he realized the media is going to come in.
No, I think he probably fled when they crossed the border, or they were coming to the to Tarantia. He would fled. I remember Publius being a very loyal and steadfast man, not a coward,
he is.
not a coward at all.
No, I just mean he fled quickly, realizing the situation.
Yeah,
was that without Conan there is no Aquilonia, and that it's best to flee, and get a feel for the atmosphere. Publius is essentially a character like Tu, I think it is, from the Cull stories, a very loyal and steadfast man, and the main political advisor of these fictional kings. So Publius is a very important character.
And it might also be the fact that here it is. He heard, oh, the king is dead. Where's the body?
True, but it'd be buried under rubble.
Right.
As far as he would know.
But
the council has been disbanded. Now, that would be Conan's ruling council. Some men were imprisoned, some were banished. So they're obviously trying to get rid of Conan's ruling council. And we are also told that Comtesse Albiona is to be executed. And now I did read on a little ahead to a later Dark Horse comment.
Just wanted to say one thing about Publius. I remember that's what I was thinking about here. I just did a video about a while ago, the Mad King of Aquilonia, the short one. So Publius is in that story as well. So I just remember, because it's funny, the story ends when with Conan becoming king, and Publius is the guy who at the end, Conan is sitting on his throne. It's like, yes, I am king. I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna take some wine, and then Publius comes in with all these scrolls. Okay, sire. Now here's the taxes you gotta look at, and it's like, and Conan is like, no, I want to be a pirate again. Like, I don't. It's like a mountain of of scrolls that Publius comes in with, basically. And here's your duties, sire. Like,
so what's that story?
That's the Conan the Liberator, Savage Sword of Conan adaptation that I looked at, but it's also in the book format. It's in 49 through 52 in Savage Sword of Conan. You can look at the ending is just so funny. He says, like, Ymir and Ishtar, can't business wait? Prospero is bringing in a score of beauties who have volunteered to be the king's companions, and I'm to choose among them. Sire, some of these matters require immediate attention. And then he goes, here's an example. It's a petition from Barony of Castria, beginning to be forgiven their arrears in taxes. Here are the treasury accounts. And also, then Conan says, Conan just said, gods and devils, why did no one tell me that kingship entails this dreaded drudgery? So help me, I'd almost rather be a pirate on the main. And then Publius just said, even the lightest crown sits heavily sometimes, my lord king. A ruler has to rule, or another will govern in his stead. The late Numidides shirked in his proper tasks, and he was, yes, I suppose you're right. Crom, curse it. Page, fetch a table and spread out these documents. Now, Publius, the treasury statements first. Then Conan starts to go through all the papers and sits like this, like, I guess I have to do this. But it's just a funny, like how it contrasts between, like, he's taken the throne and he thinks, life is easy now.
No, It's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's hilarious. That's the thing though. Publius just plays the role of buzzkill there.
Yeah. Sir, you gotta do this, sire. Yeah.
But as for Albiona, I did end up getting enticed by quite a bit of the Dark Horse run. Now, in the video we'll be releasing on Monday, I had not yet read as far as I did in the editing of that, but I'm leaving it as is. But I did read on ahead that Albiona is someone Conan met when she was a little girl and protected, and that was, I think, in Conan the Cimmerian or Conan on the Road of Kings or something. And okay. I haven't finished all the Dark Horse runs. I haven't, but
no, me neither.
They were pretty well written for the most part, except for the Cimmerian. I've got some issues with some parts. There are some parts that are good. But Albiona had a special place in those stories. So I'm just going to say my impression here, although just looking at Howard's work here, is I'm just probably going to guess probably one of Conan's many mistresses.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
If she was, I was thinking there was a story about in the Conan Songs of the Dead. There's a countess that Conan comes across, but I don't think it's the same one. It's the only thing that comes to mind right now. But it is interesting that Conan once again, like, he throws caution to the wind that he hears that Albiona is going to be put to death because she didn't want to become mistress to Valerius, and her lands are forfeit. Her henchmen sold into slavery at midnight in the Iron Tower. Her head must fall. So he immediately then decides to go and rescue her, which wouldn't be the most sensible thing to do, as he is the one who will make or break Aquilonia if he dies or is captured, etc. So, but here once again we see the conduct of Conan and the his own convictions, and his convictions and stuff like that. But it's also that has kept him alive, and because people wouldn't. You wouldn't expect that of a former king or a king in hiding to come to the rescue on his own.
I've got two things here to say about this. For one thing, it might sound weird, but I don't think anyone would follow Conan if he didn't do this sort of thing.
Yeah, it's what makes him different.
Yeah, what makes him him.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing is, this is going to have more to do with archetype. I think archetypally he has to do this because he is a king archetype. He has to uphold chivalry, and the chivalrous thing to do is go rescue this lady. And sometimes in the story, the character has to do things the rational way, but archetypally the king has to uphold a certain ideal, and this is what Conan is doing. Ladies and children are under his protection as king archetype, so he has to put them above everything else, even reason. And this is something I've noticed about a lot of medieval literature, and even like Ivanhoe and other stories like that. The king has to uphold the moral standard above everyone else, and Conan does. So he would probably no longer be the proper king archetype in his fullness if he didn't do this. He'd probably become a shadow archetype, which would see him diminish and become lesser than what he is, as far as what my understanding is of archetypes and whatnot, and of what Ewan Campbell wrote. So Conan kind of doesn't really have a choice here. He has to do this. And this is It's referenced here that this is his. He's reverting to his pristine type, or that this is the barbarous side of the king. But I guess so, to an extent. Yeah, because if it's his instincts, if it's the archetype, that is the most raw kind of form of the character, in a way.
A part of him has to revert back to the Conan who conquered the kingdom.
Well, he has to reconquer it.
Exactly.
Now, he does say that he'll ride alone to Poitin, but he has one last duty to perform as King of Aquilonia, as said it's to rescue Albiona. And I'm going to hazard a guess that he does save her.
Yeah,
But-
she also is in one of the short stories by Elsbrog de Camp and Björn Nyberg, The Star of Korala, has the Countess Albion in it as a main character.
Oh, really?
And in that she is Queen Marala of Ophir, who's fallen out of grace, and then she has her ancestral home or ancestral estate in Aquilonia, and she becomes the Countess Albiona. So she was a queen in Ophir. Now, of course, this is not in the so-called canon of Howard's, but
I'm not
from
sure.
prestige.
I'm not sure what to make of that, of the canonicity of that story.
Well, I mean, everything's not canon unless it's Howard, but it depends how you take it, of course. But I mean, it's prestige stuff, but it's interesting.
There are some prestige stuff that are worth considering part of the canon. I think it was Grimdark who basically said, "Make of it what you will," or something to that effect. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You have three main forms of canon. I think the Marvel version, the Lovecraft version, and just Conan on his own. But that's not including the prestige stuff, which yeah. Conan, the Hyborian Age is something which I'll say I don't think anyone should be able to say this is canon or that's not canon or something, because so much is like, as the prestige stuff, as much as it's kind of glorified fan fiction, a lot of it is well written. And
yeah,
you know what? I think we should. It's mythology. Like, we should be able to have fun with it. Like,
it's like the expanded Star Wars universe. The old one.
Yeah. Up until like 2008 or something. And yeah, it's make of it what you will. And
yeah,
you look at.
I mean, there's only 21 stories by Howard, so I mean, it kind of comes in a must. Like, if you want more of this world and characters, then
and who doesn't want more?
Yeah, exactly. So
my only question is, where does Conan Chop Chop fit into this continuity?
In your dreams.
I
don't know.
But I like how Conan once again refers to dogs here. I'd be a dog to leave Albiona to die because of her loyalty to me. I may be a king without a kingdom, but I'm not a man without honor. And you have Servius. It will ruin us all, whispered Servius. It will ruin no one but me if I fail. You've risked enough. I ride alone tonight. This is all I want you to do. Procure me a patch for my eye, a staff for my hand, and garments such as travelers wear.
I mean, Conan is pretty big guy, so I mean, would he blend in?
But there's another thing that Howard is disguising him as.
Yeah.
Odin.
The classic hermit.
Traveling.
Traveling.
Hammer, the Wanderer.
Yeah, I thought about Gandalf. Yeah.
Well, the thing, I guess Gandalf is inspired by Odin, but the thing about Odin is,
or Väinämöinen actually, I think is pretty largely inspiration for Gandalf.
Yeah. But you get with Odin, his kingly aspect, which is him up in the heavens with full crown, kingly, looking great. But you also get him in a traveler's garments, in the raiment of a traveler, with only one eye and a staff, as Odin was also the most well-traveled deity in all of mythology. So,
and also kings used to have staff like this.
Yeah.
This is the staff I rule with. Like it's
the scepter. That's it. That's the term. Sorry, I forgot it for a minute. But the thing with Odin is that the patch is basically kind of like Conan taking up the disguise of this old mythological character. And the thing to always remember about Odin is that he is king. He is a king archetype. And in Norse mythology, he's the protector of all men. And yeah, he starts wars. Yeah, he's a warrior, but he's also a seeker of knowledge and the guy who shares knowledge and poetry. And Conan is very much like Odin from mythology. And this is Howard. This is just classic Howard. Him just taking this, hearkening back to his great love, which is Norse sagas. And this is such a understated but great moment. And I just have to take a moment to just kind of tease you, World of Conan, as well. This is a great nod to, I suppose you probably like this because it's a great nod to your ancestors' beliefs in literature.
Oh, you mean
Norse sagas.
Right. Yeah, it's cool. I didn't actually at beginning think about it, but yeah, it's obvious what he's wearing. It's kind of the the Finnish mythology of Kalevala, like Väinämöinen, which is the inspiration, I think, for Gandalf. At least one of the inspirations. He was the guy who just wandered all around and did stuff and helped, but he was also not so nice in in many occasions. Like he was not like Gandalf. Gandalf was much more friendly than Väinämöinen. So
the thing to remember with Vladimir, Odin, Gandalf is that at the core of this archetypal kingly figure is someone who's meant to help humanity as a whole. That's, I think, the archetypal idea. Well, I'm preaching to the choir. You're more familiar with Kalevala than I think.
I'm not that familiar with it, but I should probably be. But
it's okay. But Tolkien, for one thing, was a big fan of the Kalevala, and well, he tried to write a novelization of it. Then ended up giving up and instead writing The Children of Húrin. And that said, Gandalf was inspired by Vladimir, and as I've kept hammering home, Odin. So, and given that Tolkien had, I think, probably read the Kalevala, I think Howard might have had some knowledge of it, just as he did the Norse sagas. And there's also what has to be born in our minds is also that Conan is also the same kind of archetype to an extent as Heracles. So there's a great deal of with his strength and his cunning and his heroism and his the barbarian archetype, restoring the society to its core values and whatnot, a nod to the Greek myths of Heracles. So, sorry, it's just earlier my glasses pressed down on my nose there. So, yeah, I wonder if we're going to get anyone in the chat. I don't know if I'm blind to the chat right now because of all the internet problems we've had. I'm going to try opening the actual YouTube link. Well, the actual YouTube video. I hope I don't have problems with the chat because our internet's been, I can't load it. Okay. So we're kind of counting on you to see if there's anyone who, after Epic Kingdom, a good friend of our channel, a Tolkien tuber, who released, I think, a video earlier today about a Tolkien calendar, which actually looks pretty cool. I'll have to check that out later. I didn't have time today. This is the last comment in the chat I can see.
Yeah, I don't think no one's here right now.
Okay. Well, it looks like there's one person.
But that's probably me.
Okay.
Checking out. Yeah. But yeah.
Okay. But as far as these chapters go, I think that they were really, really important in setting the mood for this story. Like the characters kind of.
Yeah, there was kind of like redirecting or telling Conan like different points of view. There's like two encounters. There's one with the crone
Oracle.
Yeah, with the Oracle. One with the Oracle, then one with the like you could look at like one with the Oracle of the spiritual realm, and then one Oracle of the material realm. But
That's a good way of looking at it.
But the one who is also of the material realm understood, no, this is a problem of the spiritual realm. So you have to go that way before you go in the material world.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, otherwise you're just going to put yourself in the same position as before when you were taken out by the Child of Darkness and your army fell. So, but there's interesting. There's like two points. One with the Oracle,
and they meld really well together.
And they meld the Servius, but also Servius says no. You have to heed the first one, even though he doesn't know that he's seen this crone. But in his own way, he says.
But what's also interesting is that now I'm not sure about Servius Gallianus's age, but you almost get a sense of him and Zelada being a little older than Conan. Yeah. And the two of them, now you have male and female advice being given. So you have essentially Conan receiving advice from what one might term, kind of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, telling him this is how you do it and this is where you need to go. And we also get with the landscape being burnt and wrecked and generally ill-used, we get a sense of what's in store for Aquilonia if Conan does not get restored to his crown. And this is great for setting the mood for this book. This is no ordinary Conan story. He can't just instantly triumph.
Yeah.
This is a story for the battle of hope itself. Like, this is hope against despair, against all odds. And at least that's how I kind of read it.
One thing that I couldn't help but think is that before, when he first conquered the kingdom and when he first traveled through the kingdom, he saw it from the perspective of Conan the Barbarian.
Or at least the king.
But now he has to see Aquilonia through the eyes of a king.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I interjected there wrongly. Yeah, okay.
Where he has to look at his kingdom from a different perspective now that...
Well, he was king before, and he was looking at it from that angle. I think that he has to look at it more as a land that's been conquered and laid low. And the thing is, he doesn't have the support he once had, because a lot of the people have been well, sent off to Mitra, we'll say,
Yeah,
and he has to try to draw out new support, find new allies, and generally rebuild in a way. And
yeah,
in terms of the literature, the mental image you get is probably of like the Pride lands under Scar. So it's also harkening back to the Celtic ideal where bad kings cause famines and cause the land to become wasteful and not supply any food. Good kings are linked to the seasons in that good kings, the rightful good king, the right kind of guy on the throne, causes the crops to grow. And the right king has the support of, well, the gods or God in Celtic psychology, literary psychology. And this, for example, with Macbeth, when you read the Celtic sources, it's referenced that there were 17 good harvests under him. I think it is 15 or 17, something like that. And they basically attribute it to Macbeth himself. And this is very Celtic. And it's primarily the Celtic sources that kind of do this, at least in Western European primary sources. So Howard here, having the land be wasteful and unable to provide the kind of crops and greenery, and there being nothing of the old beauty to the land, and everything is savage and bestial, and there's nothing really good going on, is linked to the idea that a good king inspires goodness and plenty and good harvests. Bad kings cause famines. And this can be also seen in Shakespeare's Scottish play. So you have here a very Celtic kind of image, and Conan is supposed to be a very Celtic character. And although this is text and mythology, there is a root there of Irishness and Celticness because Howard himself was of Irish descent. He took a lot of pride in it. So that's me kind of analyzing this story from its from the roots of history in a way, from its historical roots.
I also really enjoyed this place in the last chapter. In this, is it the seventh chapter? When Conan is sleeping, it's a nice image where he, like, it says, without a word he stretched himself upon it and sank into restless but deep sleep, though which phantoms moved silently and monstrous shapeless shadows crept. Once lying against a purple sunless horizon, he saw the mighty walls and towers of a great city such as rose nowhere on the waking earth he knew. Its colossal pylons and purple minarets lifted towards the stars, and over it, floating like a giant mirage, hovered the bearded countenance of the man Xaltatun. And this, obviously, he sees Acheron, and he sees because that's purple is associated with Acheron. So I thought that was a really nice mental image that they give here. Before then, Conan woke in the chill of whiteness of early dawn. Then he wakes up in the hut, so he sees like his enemy and the thing, or like a portent of the future. What they're trying to do to raise up Acheron and Xaltatun rule once again. So it's really cool. Also, by the way, in the adaptation in the Hour of the Dragon, they call him the Dark Lord. So
really,
yeah, they call Xaltatun, "Let the Dark Lord rise." Yeah,
is that in the that's the European?
Yeah, in the Ablaze version.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry if I asked, because I looked it up and it looks like there's about 3-4 different comic book adaptations of this story.
Maybe it's just single issues. It's like and then covered in the hardback. It's 4 issues of Hour of the Dragon, I think.
No, I just meant, I think, didn't Roy Thomas do one, Dark Horse Comics?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
meant. Like, there's
Okay,
different
okay.
people who've
Yeah, there's
adapted it.
yeah. There's many adaptations.
But we'll have to check out Blaze and do a review at some point. Because that sounds pretty neat. They call him the Dark Lord, which is what
Yeah.
I think we three have been basically calling Saltatoon from the beginning.
Yeah. I mean,
And
basically, he's basically the Dark Lord. So
yeah, he's as strong as it'll get. And I wonder if maybe there's an argument to be made that Fathamon can be compared to Saruman.
yeah, I mean, he becomes very powerful with the ring.
Yeah,
With the black ring.
I just mean that
Ring
Fathamon is on the steps on the road to becoming a Dark Lord.
right.
And Saruman was on the road to becoming Dark Lord in a way.
Yeah.
And I think in one of Tolkien's letters, he said if it had gone on for a bit longer, Saruman would have become an actual Dark Lord or something to that effect. So it's...
Weren't they of the same substance? Saruman and Sauron
Oh, yeah.
were
They're
Maiar.
both Maiar. That is to
Yeah,
say,
Maiar.
heavenly
Yeah.
spirits in the service of the Valar.
Yeah.
But some Maiar are more powerful, like Melian and
Right.
Sauron. They're like the strongest two.
Right. Yeah.
Saruman was, I think, probably one of the craftiest, like one of the cleverest Maiar. Gandalf's a Maiar.
Yeah.
Radagast is one. I love that guy. But yeah, so you get mostly Maiar. The Valar, there's only a few of them. I think like 12 or 13 of them. And I'll have to look up the actual number. And
Yeah, no, I was just thinking there's like a power, like some are stronger, some are weaker in the Maiar.
Yeah. It's weird because Melian and Sauron are powerful enough to, and even Eonwë, I think it is, the Herald of Manwë, those three are more powerful than some of the Valar. But which begs the question, why are the Valar called the Valar when there are Maiar who could overpower them? And it's more a matter of hierarchy in terms of rank. And in terms of power, Tolkien had a different idea of what that meant. It might not be muscles to his mind. It might be like the power of creation, which is the most important ability, because it takes more energy to create something than to destroy it. Destruction is easy, creation's hard. It was kind of Tolkien's psychology. And I think that one should probably, I think with Howard, he might take a similar stance, but from a different angle. And I think with him, he would attribute a lot of power to those with ill intent, but that the power ultimately always finds a way to rebound onto them. And they never come to a happy ending and they're always left unsatisfied in the end, because you look at like the conspirators against Conan, they all met with ghastly ends. And you look at, well, every conspirator in this book will probably come to a very unsatisfactory end. So with Conan, with Howard, there is that kind of retributionary element to the story. But anyways.
Oh, there's someone in the chat, Jasper Lane, says Shalom. True, can't build a Lego house, but I sure can smash it.
Yes. Jasper Lane is a channel we've done a collab with, Dan and I.
Nice.
At least I have. And it was a pretty funny video of Jaime Lannister versus Aragorn.
I just wanted to get back to say first what you were going to say. I just want to get back.
All I was going to say was he's a pretty funny channel. He's done Pokemon stuff. He's
nice.
done Game of Thrones, but primarily he does these versus things and does whatever he wants and has fun with it. He's a pretty nice guy. So do smash that like and subscribe over there and on World of Conan, of course.
And on the brother screen. But I was going to say that's an interesting contrast between Tolkien and Howard there. In Howard, you see a lot of corruption. Like there's very, 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 very few people who are upstanding citizens who are rulers. You see it more in the common folk, but not even there you don't see it. Like you can really see Howard's like own experiences in life come very strongly through his writing, and he paints a pretty bleak picture of humanity. And to be fair, he's quite right in a lot of his assessments, but there really isn't a lot of like good people, like or good rulers, or like there are some, of course, but he paints mostly like corruption everywhere.
I think with Tolkien, he does have a lot more good rulers than Howard shows, because but if you look at the First Age, there's only a handful of rulers who are decent. In the Second Age, there's quite a few who are quite decent. In the Third Age, there's some, but the interesting thing with Tolkien was that I'm going to refer to the Númenórean Empire, where you have a good chunk, like the rulers eventually go really, really bad. But then you have, like near the end of the Númenórean Empire, when Númenor challenges Errol-Ilúvatar and the Valar, the people are every bit as vicious and unkind and cruel in the end as their rulers. They truly deserve the rulers they have, in a way. And at first, Númenor slowly became corrupted. Tolkien presents it as a very slow process from a golden age in morality to immorality and cruelty and savagery. And I say savagery not in the way of like Conan, like raw barbarian. I mean like in the other meaning of the term, like cruelty beyond reason. Tolkien seemed to think that there are societal trends, and that it seems almost like he was implying that if this is where it's going to be very, very bleak. You like your crowds. You don't really have ethics sometimes. You just have crowds. And so you have the faithful, who they're the moral crowd, but those people drifted together and they stay in their little corner, or at least their bubble, so to speak. And they do the right thing. They are the good people. But on the other hand, they all were grouped together by the crueler majority, who grouped together because they wanted to be in the in club. They wanted to be in the group, and they wanted to conform. And they pushed out those who had the slightest objections until they just pushed them almost out of the entire group, so to speak. It's a very bleak way of looking at it, and that sides are almost chosen almost by accident and more by virtue of who your family is or who you go drinking with, rather than the actual ethic, in a way. And I find that very bleak. But on the other hand, there is a deliberate selection by some characters to do the right thing, which forces them into the faithful. With Howard, he would probably take a different stance and say, well, just because the nobles go foul, it does not mean the peasants are all foul. Right. And what Tolkien kind of takes is, well, it's been going on for so long. the nobility have dictated to the peasantry what the morals are, and the peasantry slowly but surely came around to thinking like the nobility because they were educated that way. On the other hand, those peasants that don't agree are forced into the same group as the faithful, all of whom eventually just depart from the island because it's that or death. But it's like, I think that Howard is very cynical in that he's showing that there are very few monarchs who are decent.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think this might sound weird, but I think there's an idealistic side in that he's showing that the peasants can triumph. Like,
yeah,
there is morality amongst the peasants. There is conscientiousness. There is intelligence on their part, even when the nobility will forget about it. And that the nation is really built by the people and for the people. And that it's that simply because the nobility or the royalty or something go foul doesn't mean the people will. And I know it might sound weird, but it almost seems like in this regard, Howard might be the more idealistic of the two in a way. Not to contradict or disagree too strongly with you. It's just, now there are times when Tolkien takes a much more idealistic stance, but then when you look at Arnor and Numenor, he generally portrays people as maddened once they join a crowd. Like they could just go insane and start just behaving like monsters or fools. Whereas it seems like Tolkien is suspicious of groups.
I mean, we saw it in these chapters, though. We saw with the Aquilonians prostrate themselves before the Nemedians and just accept them, the whole crowd, like they were easily swayed by lies that Count Rosero will take the crown for himself and old feuds and blood will flow and stuff like that, that it would be better for Valerius to be on the throne. So they were like the crowd, and then of course and then of course the Nemedians, like that mob, what they did to people and stuff like that. So there's truth to the idea of madness in the mob.
Yeah, it's very and it really harkens back to a French saying I really love, question tout, question everything.
Yeah.
But that said, I think that Howard, his cynicism is well placed, but so is his faith in like the common people. And it's hard to disagree with Howard on a lot of these issues and whatnot. He makes a lot of valid arguments in his letters and in his literature regarding this. His philosophy is very reasonable to a large extent and very rational. And the thing is, I really like that before Conan even makes a move, we see him gathering counsel and wanting advice from other people, not like himself. So we got a strong sense that he's a wise king. He's a good monarch. He knows he's up against something he doesn't fully understand. So it's best to seek the counsel of those who are familiar with the situation more so than himself.
Yeah.
And I also like another thing that he does. He has the attitude that he doesn't trust Zaltotun or the Nemedians. And what he does is, because he doesn't trust them, well, who would? And he ends up deciding, okay, before I even I cut out for a minute. Before I'm going to even consider Zaltotun's point of view, I am going to consult with people along the way and find out what the truth really is. Because sorcerers have a habit of twisting the truth to suit their own aims. The Oracle presents them with the truth, but because she's an Oracle and she used magic, Conan is going, I want to hear more. I want to hear it from a different person. So he seeks out Servius Gallianus, who says, yeah, it is that bleak. This is indeed what happened. So essentially, these past 2 chapters was Conan hearing the same things to an extent. Zaltotun told him.
Yeah.
But he's triple checking to make sure that it is indeed true that Aquilonia and Terentia did fall and what's happened.
Yep.
So we have his characterization of him.
Oh no. Connection. Oh no. It's just me. It's a me.
Mario.
It's a me,
Well,
Mario. It's just me.
Yeah. Well, all I was going to say was that that Conan this is showing, not telling us how suspicious he is of magic and sorcery, that he doesn't even trust the Oracle to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wise thing anyway to go and ask the lay of the land from Servius, someone who knows like what's happening in the court and stuff like that. So
yeah,
he kind of gets counsel from both sides. Like I said earlier, spiritual and immaterial. He gets counsel on both sides. So I thought that was interesting in two chapters, basically 2 conversations that very much mirror, like they mirror themselves or themselves, or how would you say, like they mirrored each other, but with different language and different aspect of it, but still.
Yep.
It's really cool.
I think we kind of discussed this into the pavement.
Yeah, definitely.
And the next 2 chapters, 9 and 10, will be discussed on your channel.
Yep.
Which is my cue to say to like the stream, but also go over to World of Conan if you haven't already. I'm pretty sure most people at this channel have. But jump over to World of Conan, subscribe to the channel. There's great content over there. And
you can watch the earlier streams from a playlist.
Yep.
And all other kinds of videos and stuff. Like and subscribe and check us out once again when we return in the near future.
Yep.
Week or 2, we'll continue with that.
Yep.
With the story.
Also subscribe here to stay tuned for more Conan content. And others, Dan are coming up with a comic book review this week. And
nice.
That'll be pretty exciting. And
which comic book do you want to tell?
Well, it's the Dark Horse issues 0 and 1.
The original run. Yeah,
it's quite good. And
it's fantastic.
So stay tuned for that and for our thoughts on it. So share, subscribe, like, and hail Conan and the Barbarian Horde.
Hail Conan and the Barbarian Horde. See you all.